Yeah.
This is our first meeting of 2019, so Happy New Year, everyone. Public participation? No? Okay, then we will move on to approval. Do we have public? No? Okay. We'll move on to approval of minutes.
Some of these minutes were already approved, so...
Oh, which one?
The December 3rd minutes were approved.
December 3rd, and I believe December 10th were also.
We tabled one of these since before.
We tabled a whole bunch.
Yeah, we tabled some of the older ones.
I thought we had tabled December 10th.
Actually, we may have.
I can't remember why.
It won't
because we didn't have them. We had them late for the 17th meeting, so not everyone had a chance to review them. Yes.
Okay. So let's go to minutes of May 31st, 2018, because we accidentally did not approve these. Public session. Motion by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these?
I saw Mrs. Moran added a comment in the electronic file. Yes, thank you very much. The meeting was called to order at 7:01.
Okay.
Thank you. My notes are wrong, and that was a late meeting.
Thank you for
Okay.
making that.
Anything else?
And our non-public started at 7:03.
So non-public started at 7:03, not 7:13?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor as amended? Aye. Non-public session 1 for May 31st, 2018.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these?
Time change?
Yeah.
Yes. 7:03. Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Okay. Non-public session 2 for May 31st. So moved by Mr. Frida. Second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
November 26th, public session, 2018.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion?
Yeah, I put a correction in there. There was a spelling Penny put in, so.
I'll be opposed. That's why I thought we did these already, because I thought I already did that, but...
What was the correction? I saw it.
Yeah,
This one right here.
It says, I suggested we needed to respond, but not through social media. And what I said was, we need to respond by putting something in social media that was a statement, but not respond to any comments to that. Just put a statement in there.
Right. And then there was the correction of the word opposed.
Yeah, and maybe mention that it's Pam Merrill that in that above.
Rather than just Pam.
Instead of just Pam.
Anything else? All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
November 26th, non-public session 1.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
I was just reading these to accept the resignation. I thought I said no.
You did. It was 4-1.
In public. We did that for the public.
Thank you. I knew I'd seen it, and I swear I read it.
December 3rd, 2018, public session.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion on these?
Is the wacky spelled right? I'll ask every single time.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I don't think there's
No,
any at the
there's
end.
no E.
Yeah, just no E at the end.
He wrote it himself, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Non-public session, no, excuse me, that was public. Non-public session 1 from December 3rd.
I move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal to approve, second by Mr. Frida. Discussion on these.
Okay, I have.
I know, I have a really weird one.
I do too.
of the public.
Okay, so it's not just me, all right. Oh, this is the one that includes comments.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
oh, so did we change December 10th in that last one? It says September.
Right, it should be, was that changed in this one?
On page 5 of 6, does your copy say at the bottom, Ms. Vaughn asked the board if they would like to meet on Monday, September 10th? Or does it say December 10th?
It says September, it should say December, so at the top of page 5, first line, it says September, it should be December. So did you want to revote that as amended?
Well, there was another correction in there. It should have been
There were a
Select
couple.
Board and Budget Committee.
Oh, that
In
was
the
the one
public
where
participation.
Stan had
In the public
recommended.
participation from Mrs.
participation.
Tanner, she thought it was a good idea to get together with the Select Board and the Budget Committee.
To be honest, I don't think she said both.
Okay.
I really don't.
You think she said to get together with Budget Committee?
No, I think she said select board.
Okay.
I mean, we could...
Yeah, we can go back and we can revisit those at another time.
The other on that, on page 4, it says motion by Mrs. Cardinal to increase line 676 through 771 too, and there's a dollar sign without an amount.
That's for the default budget, right?
I believe so.
Yep. It's under the header of default budget.
And I don't,
Yeah, we'll need to retract our approval of these minutes and come back to them.
A motion to
Thank
table
you.
these
Good catch.
minutes.
Motion by Mrs. Moore to table them, second by Mr. Frieder. All those in favor?
Aye.
But we're back to December 3rd, non-public one.
correct.
Did I have I had a motion on those, right?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moore, and second by, I think it was by Mrs. Cardinal. Any discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Non-public session 2 from December 3rd.
I move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal to approve.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moore. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Non-public session 3 from December 10th.
Okay,
There was
can we
another.
back up to December 3rd?
Sorry, I meant to say
Sorry.
December 3rd.
Okay, non-public 2 though, before
We
we...
just voted on
I
those.
know we did.
Okay.
It says no discussion was had, but the board discussed personnel, because it was a personnel
That's right.
issue.
And that was,
So can we amend that?
No, this is the one that we went in and decided we didn't need it. We came right back out.
Because,
No discussion was had. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Because it's the one.
That's right, there wasn't.
We have to talk about this. We're having a deja vu moment.
No discussion was had about no discussion. All right,
okay,
thank you.
non-public session 3 from December 3rd.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Public session from December 10th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cardinal. I will say that I probably should, because I'm on the absent list, maybe I should be taken off the present list.
Yes, thank you. You were definitely absent, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's another set of minutes in here where we're both absent and I'm listed.
I did. Yeah. I couldn't find it in mine. Yeah, sorry. Tagging in. So you were, Mr. Shagnon was absent, excused from the public, but Mrs. Warren was here for the start of the meeting. Yes. Okay.
No, I was here for this whole meeting. There's just another set of minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't remember why I was absent.
That wasn't
You were
unexpected.
sick.
Yeah, you were
Oh,
sick.
no, that was...
You're back. I don't know. They're on all kinds of things.
You planned on coming.
I think you were second.
Yeah. Anyway, any discussion on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
I will abstain. December 10th, non-public session 1.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Frida.
Same thing, taking you off the present
Yeah.
list.
Sorry. I have a template that
You did
has
it on,
everybody's
no, you did
names.
it on the other one. You did it on 2, though. Anything on these? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Who was the motion and the second on that? I'm
Me
sorry.
and Stan.
Okay, thank you.
Did I come in late? Sorry.
Non-public two?
No.
Okay, let's look at 2.
Because you were absent.
Do you remember being here for this?
Well, I'm listed in the vote. Let's have a motion first.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mr. Frida moves and Mrs. Moran seconds. I'm listed down at the,
You are listed in the vote. Why?
but I don't,
You
You
definitely
weren't
weren't here.
no.
Okay, so that's an amendment.
Yeah, no, I definitely was not here. Okay. All right. Anything else? All those in favor is amended? And I will abstain. All right. Public session,
This was just
Never mind, I was here.
presentation
Yeah.
to the budget committee.
Okay, I was,
okay,
yeah, right,
yes.
I was here for
Presentation
that.
Budget Committee, which was December 12th, 2018.
Correct.
The motion. So moved by Mr. Frida, second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion on this?
This was a tough one to know who was present on behalf of the school district because we had a long list.
Let me,
I was there, I know Jessica Richardson was there, Paul Roberts was there.
you have the school,
Blanche is spelled wrong.
Thank you.
you
I
have
don't
the
think
school representatives who were there.
I don't think you should be listing the residents because you don't have to sign in. There was a big to-do about that a few years ago about listing who was at a meeting. So I don't think you have to list the residents.
Okay, I'll take all the residents out, everybody.
Yeah. Those who were there as in official capacity.
Because there were so many more than those 4, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's real. And this is a formality. We posted the meeting because we knew a quorum of our board was going to be there.
Right. There were no decisions made by the board this evening, but
Yep. So it's okay with everybody that we just link in what the budget committee minutes will be when they're posted and approved.
Because Linda was there, so she made a motion to adjourn the quorum of the school board.
Yes, just our 3 that were there from the end.
Okay.
So you were there at the beginning, but then you left at 9:15.
Yes.
And then we adjourned at 10.
and Mrs. Vashon wasn't necessarily there representing the district. So I mean, you were there in your other capacity. Would you like to be listed on the, no, okay. That was a no.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor is amended?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'll abstain. I'm sorry, I wasn't there. Okay. December 17th, public session.
I move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frida. Discussion on these.
Laurel is misspelled. As would I.
Anything else? All those in favor is amended?
Aye.
Non-public session 1 from December 17th.
Can you just pull it up?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs.
Sorry.
Warren,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cardinal. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
I abstain.
One abstention.
Yeah.
Non-public session 2 from December 17th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion?
That's good.
This is a student issue. Do we want this much information?
I was thinking that for the last one too, that we just approved, that it was too much information. I just set it aside.
You didn't seal these?
No.
No, we didn't.
I'd like to note, though, that I was absent for this non-public. I stepped out to go
That's
into
right.
the game, and I did not,
We did.
as I'm reading it, it's not ringing the bell, and that's why.
Right.
No, we sealed these. We
That's
sealed
what I
1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so they shouldn't have been in the packet.
Well, yeah, 3's not, but, so 2, yeah, just if we can put that I was absent. And Mrs. Moore shared that. Okay,
Okay.
so,
And if we can turn these into,
And these were,
so we'll give these
so
back
that
to
was,
you.
right, and that was 6 years on 2. and it
Session 1 was sealed for 5 years. Session 2 was sealed for 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor? As amended?
Okay.
And I'm going to abstain, I wasn't there. Give those back to you.
Okay, thank you.
The non-public session 3, we don't have because those are sealed as well.
Right.
They're right here. We can do it during non-public?
Yeah.
Review them during non-public?
Yeah.
Do you want to pass down the other sealed ones to me?
2, that was,
1 and
they
2.
were in the
They-
packet,
they
too.
Yeah.
we don't have the other ones in packets.
Oh. Okay,
We're old
let's
school.
jump to 4. Non-public session 4.
I don't have non-public session 4.
See that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, that was later in the night.
Okay.
Non-public session 4. I'll move to approve. I wrote them.
It was,
Yeah, I got it right here.
Are they in here? They're in here.
They are.
They're a PDF. 2018,
Oh, there it is.
12/17.
So moved. Or second.
I'll second, whatever.
okay, so moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion on these?
Everything look good to you,
My only
Mrs. Vaughn?
question was, a couple of these are a little bit, the measurability is, if I'm going to be evaluated on them, what the metric is a little nebulous.
I think we need to have another session to iron those details out for sure, yep.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. because
Specific,
I went-
measurable,
As I
attainable,
went
relevant, and
back
time
and
out.
looked at those, I went, yeah, okay. But it was the end of a very long
Right, but
evening.
this isn't going to drive that. This just kind of recaps what we talked about, but we're going to have to,
It is,
you're right, we're going to
but-
have to go back to that.
Turn it into a plan.
Well, should we table these then?
Well, if we didn't discuss it during that session, if we didn't discuss the measuring stick for these 6 goals, then
But these are
we can't
some things that we discussed.
hold
That
up the
was
minutes for it. We need to have another personnel session to further develop these 6 goals into,
a rubric that,
because this is what was said.
It is what was said, and I mean, again, it's not ironed out. It is a personnel issue. I don't care if it's public, but
would you prefer they be sealed?
not necessarily. I would think probably the next part down is
I'm in a
because
motion to
that's
table
a
these.
process that is not yet complete.
Can we table those and discuss them? And
We have a motion to table. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frieda. All those in favor?
Aye.
still got through a lot of minutes.
Yes, good work.
Okay, up to policies.
Yeah. Doesn't have any policies.
And we didn't put anything new in there.
Can we
No,
keep that
remember
on
I-
the agenda item?
I excused myself from the meeting.
Right, and we don't have it nailed down yet, so,
No,
no.
I remember I had to leave.
Okay, so it was just there in case
It
we
was
did.
there in case we did, yep.
New business, high school health presentation?
So you have the text of an email that I've received from the nurse manager at Options. The high school is looking to have a presentation come in. I did want to run this past the board just with the content, and our policies have been somewhat abstinence-based. This isn't wholly in that vein, although it certainly is information that could be timely. So I wanted to get your feedback on this.
It'll have an opt-out, correct?
I would do it as an opt-in, so that
An
I
opt-in.
have,
Suggestion, yeah.
I have a permission slip for students to attend, rather than the other way around.
Okay.
Opt-outs are a little bit too nebulous.
Okay. Do you want a motion for that to move forward?
Please, if that's something that you feel is...
Well, I will make the motion that we move ahead with the program from
Options.
Options. Thank you. I was looking for it in the letter.
So I will second.
You seconded.
Motion, a second discussion.
So is this your first stop? Or is there already staff in the high school that wants this?
I've been approached by the school nurse and the principal that they would like to see this happen, but I said I want to make sure that
Yes.
I stop here first before we go there, so.
Any other questions or discussion?
And what grades? All?
This would be
Freshmen
high
through high
school, so probably the health classes, more or less, mostly 9th and 10th, although you have a few that are upperclassmen that are still in the class, but mostly 9 and 10.
So it'll only be offered in health class?
That's my understanding.
Right.
Why does it say in the body of the letter at the top that she understands that the school board has concerns?
I had told the high school principal that this would be something that I would need to run past the board before it just was, I had outside folks coming in doing that. So I think that was where the concern was related from. It was more, I need the content and I need to run this past the board.
So it was more that you had concerns of just moving forward with it without the board's
Yes,
blessing.
I want the content and so that I know what we're asking people to opt into or opt out of. And if I'm going to ask the board to say yes or no, then I could give you a list of what was covered.
And who is going to review the content? Other than, this bulletized list is great, but it says here that Nurse Littlefield is
And certainly,
welcome the opportunity to review the PowerPoint activities and all materials used for the program ahead of time.
right, she has not sent me those at this point. I certainly am willing to sit down with the principal, and if any of the board would like to see those too, we can do that.
Okay, I don't want to gate it. If you and Mrs. Gardner are going to review it, you'd be the appropriate.
I've seen other presentations that Options have done. They're very well done.
Excellent.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because this is just not enough information for me to make a decision. Not saying it's a bad thing. Just, I don't know.
Okay.
Any more new business?
do we?
Old business, warrants.
Okay. So in your packet, there is a copy of the warrants draft that you had seen with a couple of amendments. We've had some suggestions come up from the Budget Committee at our last meeting. One in specific was to look at a bus warrant as far as raising funds for the capital reserve as opposed to going out to a lease each time. And so if we were to do that and look at putting enough in for the next couple of years, we're going to need a couple of buses within the next few years. To do enough for one bus next year and one bus the following year into that account would be about 17 cents on the tax rate this year. Kind of looking at the fact that the interest on the buses has increased with each lease. The 2014 effective lease rate on 2 buses was an effective interest rate of 3.97 as you look at it across the life of the lease. The 2016, which was only 1 bus, so it added an additional 4,328. The effective interest rate was 5.74%. The most recent lease added 10,185 to it. The effective rate was 6.57. So our interest over the life of the lease has increased each time. If we were to do 2 leases in the next, or a lease for 2 buses in the next round, we're probably anticipating about $12,000 or so in interest. If we were to go this route, we could possibly save that $12,000. On the other hand, you're raising and appropriating it over 2 years as opposed to over 4, which, if you spread that out, is sometimes a little bit easier on the tax rate. So we could go either way. Wanted to kind of give you what the options looked like. Once we had enough in the fund for 2 buses, we could probably look at funding half a bus a year and starting a flat cycle of replacement as we get going, because at that point, the majority of our buses will have been replaced.
Can we do if this fails, do a lease?
Well, we aren't looking at buying a bus next year anyway. It would be putting it so that in 2 years we could buy the 2 buses we need, and looking at, rather than doing 2 buses as all at once on the tax rate, do 1 this year, 1 next year.
Okay.
So I move to add this bus CRF as written to the warrant for this year.
Motion by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frida. Discussion?
Yeah, I think just self-explanatory what you had said. Thank you for doing all of the number crunching to compare what we would have normally done through leasing versus putting this money into the capital reserve fund. That's what those are there for, and we have to write warrant articles to put money away to do that.
And we are now agents to expend that fund. So if the money is there and we have a bus that goes toes up before March, we do have a little bit more latitude as far as when that would be purchased as well.
Is there any money in that fund now?
There's about $8,000 or $9,000. So not enough to do much except replace some locks.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then looking at an alternative to Article 8. Article 8 is asking to become agents to expend the Capital Improvement Renovations Expendable Trust. We could just do that and look at it. If we become agents to expend, then we could do these other pieces with a warrant article anyway, or we could, not with a warrant article, with a public hearing, or to be looking at, as we're looking at two issues that have come up, and one was the lockers that, again, came up at the Budget Committee meeting, as far as safety issues and the fact that we are going to be needing to make some security improvements to the lobbies of all three buildings. So do we want to raise and appropriate the $90,000 from that fund? There is enough in there to do that. $55,000 for the purpose of the security improvements to the lobbies of the three schools, and then $35,000 for looking at the lockers at Henry Wilson.
Can you tell me what's going on with the lockers? Because I know I did hear some complaints about the lockers, so is it replacing all the lockers?
It would be at least replacing the 7, 8 end, which are built in, which is a little more complex. And then looking to put lockers in the grade 6 wing, which doesn't currently have lockers in it. And are needed because what they have in there are cubbies that really don't work well with 6th graders. But we are going to have to look at our hallway space there and whether or not we could do, I can probably only do one side of the hall if. Yes.
So $35,000 will cover renovating, repairing some of the existing ones, replacing some of the existing ones, and installing some new ones for the 6th grade wing.
Right. And right now, the ones 7th, 8th grade end are becoming a safety issue. And
they're just running down.
Just the trip hazard that's involved with having things out because they can't be in a locker is also a problem. So that would be kind of combining a lot in that one article. We could separate it out into 2 articles if need be, but that would be the fund that both of those pieces would likely come from.
I would like to see them both in one article. I think if they're up to 14 articles, you're just going to...
And this isn't an... Well, okay.
Well, this would be in place of Article 8, so it would...
It'd still be 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's like, 5 of them in a row that are just agents to expend. I hope we're not going to...
Well, and I would likely rearrange the numbers on this part, too.
Because neither 8 nor 14, whichever way it gets worded, raises and appropriates through taxation.
Correct.
Just 14 is a little more transparent in terms of what the district planned is and how much of the fund, is in the current. The current thought is to spend. Article 8 is just allow the school board to do it and hold a hearing to this effect, the $90,000 effect.
Right, and it's okay to roll that agents to expend within that 14?
Yep, we've done that we did that with the bus lease to become agents to expend at the same time. We did that with 2 or 3 others last year. Right now, the only ones that are raising appropriation by taxation would be the operating budget, the fuel oil, and the security grant matching funds. Those are the only 3 that have tax impact currently. If we add the bus, that would be the bus. Yeah. So that would be the 4th one, and I would move that one so that the ones that are, I would renumber. So, and I was going to show you too, in the DOE portal, DRA portal, wrong set of alphabet soup, Article 3 isn't finalized yet because, 1, we have the budget hearing on Thursday, and we do have to gross appropriate. And that means that the appropriation that goes into Article 3 is whatever that final budget ends up being, plus anticipated revenues are what is gross appropriated, and then there's an offset of those anticipated revenues. And so I can show you, if you'd like to see, there's not a worksheet per se, but there's a fairly, it's a fill in the blank that I have to do for the budget and for the article that generates those pieces for it. And I'm happy to show you that in the portal if you want to take a look. I can put it up on the screen or... yes, please.
Yeah. Well, can we decide on the difference between 8 and 14?
I'm good with 14.
Someone make a motion to... I'm fine with 14.
Yeah, I'm fine with 14.
I'll make a motion
Motion by Mrs. Moran to
to
replace.
replace 8 with the language that's written in the alternative to 8.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frida. Discussion? All those in favor?
I do. Do we have to put, when we are calling out which funds, do we have to put the years they were established and renamed?
I did for that one, and actually for most of these, I have specifically put previously established in what years, because there have been some issues where the trustees haven't always called it the same thing that we have, and so I wanted to be very clear which one we're talking about, and because this one was renamed, I wanted to make it clear which one we're pointing back to.
Okay. I just think that this is a little bit too wordy.
It is kind of wordy, and I will go back and double check.
I mean, it's good information to have, especially for a deliberative session.
Right, and if we post with kind of discussion or annotation with it, I can put that there.
They
I
could do a little appendix or something.
Or
Couldn't you put 3 school lobbies and just, that would take off some, do we have to like list out all the lobbies? I'm just trying to wait to shorten it.
Yeah.
Each school building.
Yeah, I'm just trying to shorten it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me double check and make sure DRA is okay that I don't mention which school.
Okay.
I may have to
I mean, you could say all
specify.
3 schools.
Right, yeah, because I can't do Spalding High School. So,
Because the new locker request is specific to just Henry Wilson Memorial School. Okay.
although probably next on the list will need to be the high school, but Henry Wilson's are
it's going to be
slightly worse shape. Okay.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you want?
Warrant article number 3. It's not going to be worded this way.
No, that is warrant article number 3. Let me go ahead and plug in up here.
I know. I got up at like 4:30 this morning. It's like dragging. I'm a lot done though. That's the bonus to getting up early.
While we have a second of downtime, could we congratulate Mr. Jason Garcia for winning the spelling bee at the Henry Wilson, the GOB at the Henry Wilson School last week?
Yeah,
I
congratulations.
heard it was a ton of fun and really exciting
I
competition.
assume that'll be coming in a report at some
GOB.
point. Yeah, cool.
Oh no, I stole her thunder.
So when I go into the DOE portal and put in the articles, this is kind of what it looks like. And so for Article 3, it's gross appropriations to the estimated revenues, and this will change slightly because I did just get my allocations for Title 6 this weekend.
Great. So we'll get that update.
I was off by about $800 on my estimate, so I was pretty close. So I will be estimating for next year on that as well. So this part, the article language becomes, I get a fill in the blank. They basically say, here's your language, you fill in the numbers, but then as you go down here, this is where I have to fill in the portions of the budget once that's decided. And then that will then calculate further up above. So right now, the numbers that are in there are placeholders only, and I will need to go in by object code and fill in, here's what was approved for this amount, here's what was approved by this amount. It's going to look somewhat like the MS 27.
Yeah.
And so this part gets done.
It can already be populated with the school district's recommendation, right? The school board.
No, because it's the budget committee's number that goes forward on the warrant. It's not. And
This doesn't build your MS 27?
This doesn't build the MS 27, this builds the warrant. This is the warrant.
Because there's a column that says board recommended, and then there's a column that says budget committee recommended.
On the warrant, we need to have on here, is it recommended, who recommends what?
Right.
So I can put in, yes, I can put in what you've recommended so far. Yes, I can do that. So, board recommended the amounts and the budget committee. So, if the budget committee recommends more than you do on something, there'll be an offset. If you recommend more than they do on something, there'll be an offset. I was going to put in the whole thing all at once.
Okay.
Because frankly, back and forth gets a little interesting. But,
Okay.
and as I'm acting VA right now, I'm kind of trying to do two things at once. Once we get done with this part, I then also have to go down here, and there's another tab where I have to put in the default budget. We'll talk about the default budget in a bit. So I haven't populated that either in case there were some other changes that still need to be made.
Yep.
But that's how this gets built. And then that gets submitted to the DRA for kind of a quick pre-perusal, and then it goes from there. So that's what the worksheet looks like. Okay. Questions?
At what point does it help you determine your total gross appropriation?
I will have, now that I have that last figure as far as the Title VI piece, I will do my estimated revenues now. And then on Thursday night, I will have what we have. So Friday morning, I will input to send to DRA.
Okay.
Because I'm not anticipating having a BA by then.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Default budget.
So the
Are we
default.
done with- are we
I have
done
one more
with
question about
warrant?
operating.
Okay,
Sorry. So the warrant, you'll have it drafted for Thursday?
I will have, well, I can't draft 3 for Thursday until, because the number that goes into this warrant is what comes out of the budget hearing Thursday night.
We usually go into the budget hearing with the school board adopted warrant
Yep.
articles
Well,
and our recommendations.
and that's what's here now. That's what's here now.
So we're not going to do recommendations before the budget hearing?
I thought we already did. On the
Well, I mean,
warrants?
you've
We haven't
recommended.
actually gone through each one and said, we've gone through wording only.
Correct.
We haven't gone through which ones, 5-0 we recommend.
Oh, all right.
But in terms of that, like,
I mean, the general
I don't think
operating
we can
budget
until we
change.
see what warrant article 3's wording is going to be. So I think we can go ahead and have the budget hearing on Thursday without the school district's, recommendation.
I can give you the language, it just won't have the number, other than it'll have the number that you've approved.
That's what I need.
Okay, and that's what's on here now. It's the
Gross
change from.
appropriation, yeah.
It's not, the gross appropriation was actually in here, so.
That first draft you showed us, it had it.
No, this is the same language from the first draft.
There was way more detail in
Okay.
warrant article number 3
Let me go back to.
in the first draft.
The second draft looked like this, and now this is the
Okay.
third.
So the language was, what was in here, shall the Farmington School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling, and then the number. And right now the number is $16,296,933. Excuse me. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be, and we'll talk about that in just a second, that'll be a number which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Farmington School Board or by law or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 401310 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. And that is boilerplate. I'm not allowed to change that language.
Right. That's why I was surprised to see it written like this, even as a draft.
Well,
I expected to see.
As a draft, it was done that way because I didn't have the final numbers for it. That was what I gave to the budget committee. So
The last time we reviewed this warrant article, when it was originally drafted like that, and then the second time when you had these estimated tax impact of new monies, did you get in writing from the DRA that estimated tax impact is addressed on the new monies? Because
what I have from the DRA is that the estimated tax impact and the way that it is presented to the voters is solely at the discretion of the governing body.
And so should we be consistent and do it the way we've always done it?
The way it's been done the last couple of years, it's been done this way.
No.
Last year was done this way.
So last year was a debacle.
Okay.
I think we need to isolate that one out.
Okay.
The year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. That was the first year that I paid attention. So for 3 years in a row, I can attest to, it was always based on the difference between the current tax rate and what saying yes to warrant Article 3 would result in for a tax rate.
The only way you know what it will result in a tax rate is the difference on the new money. You don't have an assurance of what the tax rate will be other than the new money. Because there are other variables.
If we change the way we calculate it now, we need to have a very clear reason why. You know, and all of you know, I had a lot of heartburn with that estimated tax worksheet, estimated tax impact worksheet. I couldn't stand the thing, looked for new ones, and that's when we found out that last year's had a lot of errors, right? It came too late, and we need to have this cleaned up and clear and in place right now. So, you just said that this is always the way that the estimated tax impact was represented on the ballot.
The estimated, the only...
And it's not.
I'm not saying that it's the only way it can be done. I'm saying what I have from DRA is the only thing that I can say, absolutely, here's what you know based on is the new money.
Okay, then what we need to do is clearly address that we're going to do it a different way, and this is why. And I'm completely on board with doing it that.
Okay.
Having that message for Thursday especially, and for the deliberative session, because if we don't directly say, we're doing this differently now, and here's why, it will be misleading.
And I certainly don't want that.
Exactly.
Yep. I mean,
so we have to spell out the current tax rate is $26.26 for a collective, all of the 4 different tax rates that make up our total tax rate. This estimated tax impact of new monies on the general operating budget of 74 cents does not mean that if everything else stays the same, the tax rate will only go up to $27.
The tax rate dropped $1.55 overall. And so if everything else remains the same and it goes back to status quo, you've got the $1.55 and the increase.
Right.
It's not to say that it could go more than that. It might not go that much.
Right.
The town had a larger increase this year than they have had in the past. And it happened that this was a year that they weren't going to be able to add as much of their unexpended fund balance to, they've called it buying down the tax rate. That's not really what it is, but what it does is it offsets the tax rate. They weren't able to do that. They already knew that, and it happened to be in a year where we had the 5 years of audits that result in a larger unexpended fund balance that offset the tax rate this year in a way that it dropped the school portion, $2.08. So it certainly softened the fact that the town's portion came up. The town's portion may indeed rise again with their next budget. And if that's the case, then we're going to have those both coming up. And I can't speak to what their budget will be yet. They've not presented theirs yet.
So in reality, if everything stays the same and all of our warrants pass, it's an increase of over $2.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that's where you were going with just I think that needs to be the message is.
So this year we're going into all of this without an estimated tax impact worksheet, right?
I do not have
We're going to
that.
forego that
I don't
piece of
have that piece
documentation.
because I don't think it's been helpful.
I agree. Okay.
I think it has obfuscated. Now, we can certainly say, here's what the new money is on these, and here's where it's dropped, and here's, if everything remains the same, here's what it could potentially come up if we're just making up the difference that unexpended fund balance resulted in. Now, will there be unexpended fund balance either on the part of the town or the school at the end of these fiscal cycles? We don't know. I don't anticipate we're going to have a lot on the school side, and I don't know what the town will have. And our current government shutdown may very well affect part of that, because I did get word this weekend that our food service reimbursements will only be funded at current levels through the end of January if the shutdown continues, which means that moving forward, if the shutdown goes forward, I'm not getting reimbursements, which may begin to affect our cash flow.
And that's because of the actual agencies that do the transactions that get the funds to the schools.
That's because the agencies in Washington that send the money to the state only has funds to go through the end of January, they hope. And they have no promise of anything coming forward that will mitigate that. It could get solved tomorrow. It could be a while.
Yep. So on that same line, the default budget would have the same consequence, correct?
Correct.
So I think if we're going to do transparency, if we're going to do it one way for...
We can certainly do a graphic that says, here's the new money, and here's the difference in the tax rate this year that is likely to be the mitigating issue either way. Regardless of what happens, this is the part that has moved.
Right, but I think people say, oh, well, it's 74 cents, and then the tax bills come in and they don't really feel informed.
Right.
Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, I think... And I think this is the intention. When the voters in Farmington voted, I want to see an estimated tax impact on each warrant article, when they said yes to that question, I think that they thought, I can walk into the ballot, know what my current tax rate is, for town and for school and for state and for county, and then say, I can add these things. If I'm going to say yes to these and they all pass, I can add them all together, add them to my current tax rate, and I'll have a good idea of what my tax rate will be. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case if we're
just
only showing new
I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. So certainly, I think both pieces need to be there.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, great. So then we can stick with estimated tax impact on new monies only going forward, every year going forward, and
explain what the difference is in the up or down in the tax rate of the overall based on whatever happened that year.
I'd like to see it the other way.
You would?
I think it's a little more transparent that people know what they're voting for. I think if they go in and they see 74 cents versus 220, it's gonna, but the same with the default budget.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's,
No, we know that.
It needs to be more transparent.
Last year's warrant for the town, I have the town report, it was only on new monies.
Okay.
And we had this discussion at Budget Committee.
Okay.
So the
Because
select
as-
board and town administrator opted to go with new monies, estimated tax impact on there.
Because as DRA is putting it forward, they're saying that's the one piece that you know.
Right.
You don't know the other piece.
True.
Oh. They could be,
They didn't have it on there. Oh, there it is. Right, so for warrant, for the town operating budget, it was reflected as a tax impact of a savings of 25 cents on the 1,000.
because they had used unexpended fund balance to lower its
Right.
impact.
Right.
And the town has more latitude there than we do. We have full stop at June 30. We can't spend further. We can't push over into this. If it's not expended June 30 or committed, we don't have the option of saying, well, we'll obligate part of it knowing that we're going to have something here, unless it's a contractual obligation that has already been signed and sealed. It has to be expended before June 30. The town has some more latitude across their fiscal years. We don't. And so they operate under different rules. And so that does change how their unexpended fund balance affects where things are. They can use it differently than we can.
I feel like there isn't a right or a wrong, it's just
Well, I think
whatever
it makes sense to do the same as what the town does. I think just being consistent is good too, so I can go either way. But I think we need to be very open
Yes.
that, say it often.
Yes, every chance we get. Skywriters. So when we have the wording for the warrant Article 3, then can you show us both?
Do you have it now? Do you have the original, or?
I mean, right now, if we went on, and if I can keep the estimated revenues where they are, it does include what I had guesstimated for 6. So if we want to just leave it as is, you would be adding the $1.55 to the 74 if you're looking to get.
Right, because our valuation didn't budge much.
The valuation changed a smidge. It's your number divided by $448,547.
Instead of 474?
Of course you know what they are.
Yeah. So with the increase being $330,372, when you divide, that's what gets you the 74 cents. If you add the $1.55 to that, that gets you your total impact, all things remaining exactly as they are as of November something or other, when the tax rate was set.
All right, so that we can get a decision made, I'm going to move to approve the wording for warrant Article 3.
As read?
As read.
And I will get that for
With
you.
the estimated tax impact of new monies on the general operating budget is 74 cents. And the estimated tax impact of new monies on the default budget is 56 cents.
Well, we were going to look at the default budget in a moment, so let's, do we
Okay,
want to
revisit this one then?
revisit
Let's revisit this one. Do you guys want to go through the rest, though?
I withdraw my motion.
Sure. I'll make the motion to approve Article number 4 to be renumbered as whatever.
Actually, it'll stay 4, because I'll put the moneyed ones
All right.
where they are.
Do you want me to read it? To see if the school will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $132,000 for the purpose of purchasing fuel oil for the 2019-2020 school year in the event that Article 3 fails and the default budget becomes the operating budget.
We have a motion?
That was my motion.
I know. We have a second, sorry. second by Mr. Frida.
To approve.
Discussion.
Can we start the sentence with, in the event that Article 3 fails and the default budget becomes the operating budget? Do they allow us
This
to
is
do
their
that?
language. I don't know that we can't swap it, but this was, when I put in, this is for this and this is for that, it comes up with this, fill in this blank here. So I can certainly ask.
Well, they all start with to see, so it would be best then to keep them consistent that way.
Okay.
I can't say that as a former English teacher, I'm in love with the governmentese here.
Yeah.
But
Are you ever a former English teacher? It's kind of like being a former Marine. It's just no such thing.
Has our attorney reviewed these drafts at all?
we've discussed them, but not a form, because I don't have my final review from
Right.
DRA either.
Oh,
So
So which one comes first, the attorney or the DRA?
usually DRA on pre-review, and then attorney, and then back to DRA for final.
And that would be after deliberative session, right?
No, because these have to be, the warrant has to be posted prior to deliberative session. So,
Thank you.
Motion and a second on 4. Discussion, any more? All those in favor?
Aye.
5.
I'll move to accept 5 as read. You want me to read it?
See, I don't know if it doesn't have, they all have to be read. I mean,
We got scolded once for not reading them.
Well, let's read them then.
really?
For the minutes.
Don't need to be scolded
I don't
again.
remember that scolding.
No.
To see if the school will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $59,388 for the purpose of security upgrades at Farmington High School, Henry Wilson Memorial School, and Valley View Community School. $47,510 will come from the Public School Infrastructure Fund, with $11,878 coming from the general taxation.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion?
Again, can we shorten that to upgrades at all 3 Farmington schools?
because the Public School Infrastructure Fund specifically lists those 3, I think it's
Okay.
important to keep it parallel. And the new monies on that would be 3 cents, for those of you who don't have that. And the majority vote required is also boilerplate.
Right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
A motion to accept 6, 7, 8, 9.
Actually, 6 would become the bus CRF,
Okay.
because with the money impact, I would move that forward.
All right, so we don't-
Ones first.
All right, so I will do 6
You've already voted on that?
and 7.
Well, we voted on 13.
On 13.
Yeah.
Which will be
So let's
Sounds
call,
Consensus on that.
let's call it. So 6 is now 7.
Correct.
7 is now 8.
Okay.
So is it still 6 and 7?
8 is 13. So 6 becomes 7, 7 becomes 8, 8 becomes 13, and the rest is the same.
Why don't you make your
You want it to
motion?
be last?
I'm going to make the motion that we become agents to expend for the Farmington School District Construction and Renovation Fund, previously established in 1984, no tax impact, to see if the school district will vote to appoint the Farmington School Board as agents to expend from the Farmington School District Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund, previously established in 1983.
93.
1993. I should have put my
You wanted
glasses on.
just those 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was to approve 7 and 8. Motion, second by Mr. Frida. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And now 9 would be,
So actually 9, you wanted to move safety and security and safety to number 9 rather than have it last, correct?
I didn't put that's why I was like, I wasn't going to put a number with them and let you organize them in whatever number order.
Okay,
But we just did numbers, so.
okay. Then what is currently listed as 14 should probably become 9.
Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
We've already read this one.
We've already
Yes,
read it.
and
Second
voted.
by Mrs. Cardinal. Oh, we voted?
You did 4-0.
Oh. So we don't have to do that one, because we're switching it over. So then we need to go to 10 now, which is another agents to expend.
To see if the school district will vote to appoint Farmington School Board as agents to expend from the Farmington High School Construction, Renovation, and Repair Fund previously established in 2006. No tax impact.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I do 11?
Yeah.
I will move to accept number 11, Technology Trust. See if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $100,000 to be added to the Farmington School District Technology Expendable Trust Fund previously established.
And we skipped.
Yeah, we skipped one, special ed trust. That's all right, we'll come back.
We started reading it, up to 100,000 to be added to the
Special education expendable.
11 is now the old 10.
Yes.
But I started reading 11 the whole time.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
You did.
We heard the other one. I'm sorry.
I did.
Sorry, I thought that was number 10 now, so,
That's fine.
sorry.
Let's leave it.
Sorry, we can do them out of order.
This sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, no amount to be raised from taxation.
So, second.
So we're just...
We're on the technology trust.
Yeah.
Technology Trust.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a question on
recommendations required,
in the board folder about the recommendations required. Again, that's boilerplate from DRA. So because it is transferring unexpended fund balance, I need to post the recommendations from school board and budget committee. So I would have to have those recommendations, even if we hadn't voted to have the recommendations on everything anyway.
Yep.
We voted to have recommendations everywhere, so.
Okay, so the motion by Mr. Frieda, second by Mrs. Moran to approve the technology trust warrant article. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right. Now we're going to do special ed.
Yeah, so I'll move warrant article number 11, Special Ed Trust Fund, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Special Education Expendable Trust previously established. This sum to come from June 30th, fund balance available for transfer on July 1, no amount to be raised from taxation, recommendations required. Do we want the
sum
year?
of up to, right? Did you say those right?
I don't know.
The sum of up to
It's up to.
100,000.
The up to allows us to fund it if I have $50,000 left in the
Right.
unexpended fund balance, I can at least put 50. If it says to put in 100,000 and I don't have up to, if we don't have 100,000, I don't get to put anything in.
Okay.
Do you want to add the year? This one just says previously established.
I can do that. I have it here. I did not grab that one. This is one that wasn't similar to the other articles. I wasn't as concerned about it, but I can pull out.
I think I have the blind person's version of the trust fund.
Yes.
I don't think there was
I
yet.
second.
Second by Mrs. Cardinal.
This was the Special Education Trust, which was established in 2002.
Any
The
discussion?
technology fund was established 2000.
Actually, yes, created by the trustees in 2000. The vote was in 99, but it wasn't established until 2000.
Any further discussion on the special ed trust warrant article? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Now 13 will be the buildings and grounds CRF.
I move to approve the wording for the Buildings and Grounds CRF warrant article. It reads, "To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $25,000 to be added to the FSD Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 1993. This sum to come from June 30, fund balance available for transfer on July 1, no amount to be raised from taxation, recommendations required, majority vote required."
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moore. Discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
And this should be it.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
All right. Default budget.
So you have in your packet a copy of the default budget, as there was it needed to be added to December 10, and it aids in the discussion here. You also have some lines that were questioned. Of the lines that are here, the lines that I would probably say we could concede perhaps changing. Page 6, line 102. I think probably should not have been included.
It should go over for the 850 though, correct?
That should be, no, actually, because that was 17-18, not 18-19. So it would be 0,
Okay.
unfortunately. So, and then the line for, sorry. Did you find it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, how did we miss that?
I'm not sure because I had several eyes on it, but yeah. The athletic trainer line, page 16, 280. Previous expenditures for athletic trainer out of those other lines that did not include the entire year had been at $750. So, looking at that being, because it's required for football, but it is not required, while it's certainly a good idea.
But football itself isn't required. Got it.
So that would be a drop in that line.
Of how much? From what to what?
It would go from 4,500 to 750?
Yes, it would be a drop of $3,750. And then line, it says 545 on your sheet. It's actually 454. It's juxtaposed. It's page 25. While the progress monitoring is required, the Atlas component is not. And so that could be reduced by $3,500. Which would decrease the overall default by $9,750.
Those are the only places that you found it?
There are others that are, while not contractual, they are required. The supplies to meet competency and compliance, pieces that fall under IDEA. A good number of these, or most of these, are contractual or reclassified. One line that was questioned, and to clarify, page 46, line 893, under the cell phones, there were several lines there. The addition in, as far as the cell phones that were in the other lines that had come from, the 707 or $7,777 is the amount that had been expended for cell phones in those other lines. The increase in the budget was the $8,400 that was budgeted, and I did knock that back to what had been expended this year on the cell phone lines. It's an increase in that line of $5,271 because it's reclassified from those other lines across district. And so just to clarify that piece, and those lines were delineated in the notes, but to clarify where that came from.
Okay. It says formally the account numbers.
Right. And so it's a reduction of the increase that's proposed in the operating budget is $693. That is not reflected in the default budget.
Perfect.
So. And the rest of these, there's an RSA somewhere that says this is here. The language in the DRA as far as the language for the default does include or previous action of the school board, which would include this increase in subpay, which was included in the default. And it is delineated separately from contract and previous action and obligation. Those are separated out in the RSA, therefore they can't be just the same thing. So therefore it is here because that was a previous action of the board.
All right, so I move to decrease the bottom line of the default budget that was approved on December 10th, 2018 by $9,750, which results in a default budget of $15,236,408.54.
Do I have a second? Discussion?
And it would make the new monies $239,819 if you're looking at it that way.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Stipend schedule.
Okay. So the stipend schedule that was brought to the board back in November?
November, yep.
Was not acted upon. And discovered that the other thing that is not included on here, and that this also did not go to the association, is unified basketball, because that had currently been under a grant. And we did do a PSS with an amount that was the same as the grant, but that's not on here. And so I need to make sure that's clarified, and I need to bring that back to the association as well so that they're aware of that. That was an $800 stipend.
The one from, when was this, November?
Yep. Yes.
That had middle school JV volleyball?
It did have that on there.
It did?
How did I miss that?
I don't remember that either.
First of all, I'm not sure what middle school JV is. Like, maybe that's what they call it at the middle school level,
right.
Which just makes me crazy.
It's
When we approved, it's a club.
It's not, because if this is not a club stipend that's on here.
Because we approved just a high school program.
Correct.
There was conversation about the importance of having some type of feeder program at a lower level, but there was no middle school team or sport added and approved by the board.
And so that certainly can be, this is under discussion.
Look, you just added 800 and we took off 725.
Didn't we approve to have it when the student came to?
But we approved
That was
the
a
high school
the
program.
high school
The
program.
boys volleyball.
This is showing a stipend for a middle school volleyball coach, which would indicate that we approved a middle school program. My only concern is it's not approved, and it's not this is not the only cost. So when we approve this, we then approve a supply line. There'll be other referees fees. Like, I thought it was an in-house club.
Yeah.
I thought
Well, it
that
was here at the high school. It's been a club sport.
No, he's talking about.
No, I thought when Cheryl was here and we talked, and the boys were here presenting, that we talked about a middle school club perhaps being formed. But when you approve this, as it's, I interpret this as a coach, you then, I think, I don't know because it's not clear, approving a supply line, a referee line, a transportation cost. I don't know. I think we need clarification on that.
Okay.
But everything else looks fine to me.
None of this is something we have to do right away.
Well,
The boys volleyball certainly should be a discussion. There has been, we have a coach who was approved as a club coach so far for the boys volleyball. That team was elevated. That has been posted internally. I do have, but I can't put a stipend on the PSS until I know where this is going to go. This was discussed initially, and now I've had come back and said, well, it should be like softball or baseball. And again, so that would be a difference here from what's here, which is not what's gone to the association. So again, I'm putting that out there because I need to make sure that what they have is clear. And, because my understanding is the association also has not voted on this yet. Is that correct?
The association has nothing.
Okay.
Not even have paperwork.
Okay. Well, you have a copy of the stipends list. I've emailed it to you. Okay. But I'll make sure that you've got,
Coach makes.
And that was just this list that we talked about. That was all there was.
depending on the
That was
season,
it,
maybe
yes.
more than that.
A volleyball coach.
Yeah. There wasn't other language with it. It was just, we discussed the list. That's all we talked about.
Do you need your school board reps to get back together with the FTA reps? And
That might be the
clean
best
this
way to
list
go,
up?
to make it clean. I think that's a good idea.
So that didn't happen in November.
We thought it happened in November. It sounds
We got
like we have
together.
a couple more.
We talked about this sheet that I've shared with you, but that's all that happened.
It was just the sheet. We need we should have just a one-pager MOU that goes along with this list, or this information is included in the narrative on an MOU.
Happy to do that. Okay.
Great, so that'll go back and we'll consider that later on.
So I move to table this approval of the stipends.
Motion to table by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frida. All those in favor? Aye. Ms. Donato has a report. Do you want to jump in before we...
Yeah, it's up to you guys if it works in okay now.
I think so.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in your
digital binders. You'll see a report. It's covering November through December, so it's a little longer. I'll try to condense where I can. Just to highlight on some legislation, children placed in a home for children, which would include foster care if a child is sent to another public school. It used to be the districts could bill for the prorated cost of special education services or whatever their flat tuition was. It's been determined now that it will be the actual prorated cost of special education and related services. So this is just an FYI at this point. It doesn't impact us at this stage. Charter schools, there have been some questions previously. We do have 2 students who attend charter schools. So I just put in a little bit of information regarding charter schools. They are public schools. They do not charge tuition. They are approved by the DOE based on whatever their charter is. So it's usually some kind of charter that has some sort of special interest. It might be technology, it might be arts. And they're granted this charter for a period of 5 years. They're not required to follow all of the rules and regulations that apply to public schools. And a little bit of my research, and I can't say that this is the definitive end-all, be-all of what they don't have to follow. But based on my limited research, don't necessarily have to have the same number of instructional days as we do. Compulsory attendance is not part of charter schools. And again, this is based on just the quick check that I've had. And they don't have to follow certain health and safety accountability issues. So, and testing certainly looks different for them because my understanding is they don't have to participate in the state assessments that our students might participate in. Student assistance program, to date, and this number might be low, we have 72 students that are working with Ashley Sheedy, our student assistance program counselor. You see the breakdown by grades, and then a little bit of description of the groups that she's doing. She does do a group of students that are new to the school district, just as a means by which to kind of get to know them. There's also a group of students who have a history of substance misuse or other kind of maladaptive behaviors. She's been collaborating with community partners who are also in our schools regarding a group that might work more on a group for upperclassmen and kind of strengthening their transition skills into adulthood. This would not necessarily be special education students, but general education students who might be getting into the workforce right away and need some help in terms of how to navigate finding an apartment, how do you pay your bills, where do you go to get your electricity turned on. Also, this year, funded by the Students Assistance Program, we're going to have 2 presentations by Melissa Fernald. She was here previously in 2016 and did a presentation called High and Seek. She's retitled that program. It's not called Risky Business. It's where she sets up a teen bedroom and then plants indicators of substance use and then kind of walks parents and adults through, kind of a presentation of these are some of the more kind of sneaky ways kids might be attempting to use substances, that kind of misdetection. That will be held on the 30th of January. Doors open at 6 p.m. And then the presentation itself begins at 6:30. The next presentation will be on February 2nd, and this is a different program that she's put together, again, with the same sort of setup of having a mock teen bedroom entitled Behind Closed Doors, and this is to address mental health issues, which has become more of a concern of late with students in all schools in New Hampshire. These might show instances of mental illness, bullying, or other mental health concerns, and so same sort of process. Doors open at 6 p.m. So
It's a Saturday?
This is a Saturday?
Oh, my goodness, that can't possibly be. No, February 6th is what the date should be. My apologies.
Yeah, I was just grabbing my calendar.
Right, yeah, we'll check that. February 6th is it definitely should not be on a Saturday. No, that is incorrect.
I'm going to say we got to make sure that deliberative is over by then.
Yeah, no, it would be the 6th. I did include in the in the write-up here a link to Ms. Fernald's Facebook page if you're interested in taking a look at that.
And also a note that both of those presentations are open to participants ages 21 and over. Just, it's not open to students. This is not something that you should be bringing students to.
Correct. Correct. Thank you. On the 28th, we have a district-wide workshop entitled Managing and Changing Difficult Classroom Behavior That Interrupts Instruction. This is being presented by Polly Bath. I gave a bulleted list of a few of the things that she'll be covering. There were numerous more that kind of mentioned in connection with this workshop. Keeping a cool head, not taking behavior personally is a big one, I think, that challenges everyone. Avoiding the cycle of conflict, where can we kind of stop feeding into it, staying out of the power struggles that we can kind of easily slip into. How to avoid the removal of the same student from a room. What are the ways to keep that from happening, and how to manage confrontational behavior when it does happen. We've also been looking at the outcomes for Valley View's tree room and the behavior support room at Henry Wilson Memorial School, and I've given you some details there. Henry Wilson Memorial School behavior support room, we call it Mrs. Smith's room, is staffed by a paraeducator and special education teacher. There are 8 students that are currently assigned specifically to this room, meaning they have a behavior support plan, they have data that's being tracked. These individuals work in, meeting them in the classroom or supporting in the classroom, and also obviously supporting them when they come to the room. There are also anywhere from 2 to 5 additional students that access this room during the course of the day. Room conducts lunch groups, and adults in the room assist with, pragmatic communication with peers. How do you kind of have a conversation? And the art of conversation has been lost a little bit just in general in society, and certainly it's something some of our students struggle with. Provide support with problem solving. My apologies, there's a spelling mistake there. Help students determine the size of their problem, kind of avoiding those over-dramatic responses that kids might give to something like their pencil dropping, as opposed to, saying something that might not be so appropriate and, stomping to get up to get it. Talking about, let's have an appropriate response to what might be a small thing. Providing sensory breaks, which also gives opportunities to students to have a check-in. Direct instruction is given regarding self-control, behavior plans, and behavior data is tracked for specific students. Valley View's tree room does much the same thing. It's staffed by a special education teacher and a paraeducator. Both staff members respond in the case of a student who's having a behavioral crisis. There are currently 3 students assigned to this room, with 6 students who report for check-ins and check-outs that have been assigned by their behavior target team, or by request by classroom teachers. A teacher there creates behavior plans, participates with target team, which assists classroom teachers, holds lunch groups, same as Henry Wilson, where they're working on social skills. Also is a location where students can take sensory breaks or provide behavior reinforcement if they've kind of made their way through their behavior intervention plan. We're also beginning to see some nice outcomes for the autism classroom, which is over at Valley View right now. Currently, there are 5 students currently served by this classroom. 3 of these students will transition to Henry Wilson Memorial School next year. However, we have 4 preschoolers that will replace them. So that population will go up by at least 1. Having the separate location has been really helpful in terms of behavior management, but also in terms of really providing some director instruction. We have a young man who's nonverbal, who's making some amazing progress in terms of using his communication device, where last year we were having very little success with that. So just kind of having that quieter focus on kids that have a really special disability has been really helpul. Helps the school atmosphere as well, because we can have a place where we can bring these students when they're kind of having a meltdown, because that can be very loud and it can be pretty disruptive. So it's helpful to have that location. I've also provided you the caseloads by grade, and again, doing the net change So net change, we're at +3 overall. Out of students out of district, there are 12 students that, well, these students are in our district, 12 students who participate in the life skills program at the high school. Out of district, we have 12 students at this time, and 1 student is placed by a court action. 1 student of that group will age out or graduate in 2019. 2 students that I'm also including as kind of part of this group are attending charter schools.
Questions?
Yeah. How do you know that you know every child that resides in Farmington that attends to charter schools?
If it's a well, first the charter school will contact us if they have a concern about a student perhaps being a student that would qualify for special education needs, because we are the ones, the district of liability, and so we would do those evaluations. We write the IEP. They might provide some services, like providing special education teacher consult or pull-out instruction or paraeducator services. Any other services, we haven't run into this yet, would be provided by us. So if it's a speech-language pathologist, an OT, if there were, a behaviorist that we wanted to send there for some specific reason, that would be something that we would send them there for. So we're required to do that part. So therefore, they contact us. We have had an incident where we didn't know that a child has gone there, and we quickly found out. I can't recall exactly how we determined that, but we noticed that she wasn't there, and we'd expected her to come back, and we started making some phone calls.
Okay. Just curious how it gets engaged.
So we're not part of the decision-making as to whether or not that's the best setting to meet the needs of a special ed child?
So that's a good question. So in the process of writing an IEP for a student at a charter school, I will make the proposal that this proposal is based on this child coming here, and our belief is this is the setting we want. I then ask the parent to refuse that setting so that they have made the clear, informed decision that they are choosing instead to send this student to a charter school, and that we will provide the services that we've said we'd outlined for this student at the charter school. If it's paraeducator support, if it's, special education teacher, then we do that. But I make them refuse, or I ask them to refuse the placement.
By refusing the placement, we then don't pay for the placement. We just pay for.
We wouldn't pay for charter school anyway because it's a public school.
We pay just for we would pay for the services.
We pay for the special education portion of the service because the child is in a public school.
Right. As opposed to being with us, which is what we proposed.
Correct.
So they have to refuse.
Correct. If they want, in a manner of speaking, yes. If their intention is to keep their child, at a charter school, then yes, they would have to refuse that placement and indicate that they are choosing instead to send their child to the charter school.
But the child always gets the services.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I had another question. I had another different question. And I forgot what it was. Sorry.
There was a blur between, and maybe it's just on the printout.
Yeah. I did go back in and add some information.
You did?
Yes.
Okay,
So I might move some things around.
I was searching for it, so because I was searching, I really didn't hear you, so I just want to reread it. That's okay.
When you say there are students who are served by specific classrooms or specific, different spaces, or if they're assigned to a room, is that the one and the same? Or do you have students that are literally in that room all day?
No, I'm using that interchangeably, and you're right. When I thought about it later, I was like, it sounds like they're there all day long. But no, we don't have any students that stay in those rooms all day long.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I had asked to put the budget committee rep report. I wasn't sure if you had anything to report from the 26th meeting.
The 26th?
Did you meet the
December 26th? You're right, I did. I do. I have a couple things. Mrs. Vaughn already addressed all of the default budget questions, so thank you very much. Thank you for meeting with Mr. Johnson and working out all of those details. I know it was a very lengthy list of questions, so I appreciate you doing that work with him. Mr. Brown, he suggested and would like actually to know what this board thinks about adding 3 line items at $1 per school building for the purpose of the matching grant funds, whether it be our security grant or future ones that might come down the pipeline.
And actually, he had suggested putting one in for each cost center rather than just for each school, so that there would be $1 available per section as well. So if there's a matching grant that comes available, we would have a place
to transfer
move lines into. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But he wanted to make sure that there would be some support for that before that was
He said he would consider making that a motion at the hearing on Thursday. And seeing if the budget committee would like to go ahead and take that, action as the owners of the school district budget at that point.
But he just wanted to know if we would support it.
Exactly. You want to know if there would be any concerns with doing something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Excellent. Okay, great. I'll bring that to him. There was, by several budget committee members, positive feedback regarding Ms. Vaughn's attendance at the last regular budget committee meeting. So, we had left it. Well, I'll bring it up next budget update then. And then lastly, I couldn't get a hold of the draft minutes from the meeting, and I tried to briefly watch the video from that meeting to see exactly what Mr. Henry said. But he made a statement, and when he was reading his statement, he included urging the Farmington School Board to change the representative to the budget committee. So I thought it'd be important to let you know that.
Reason? Did you provide a reason?
He must have, but I just can't recall, and I don't have the draft minutes. I was hoping to have them by today. So I can get back to you at the next budget, next update that I provide you. And then on December 10th, when we were here, I informed all of you that I had submitted a 91A request to the Budget Committee Chair and the Town Administrator because I had reason to believe that a quorum of the Budget Committee was being scheduled without me, being included on those communications. When I sent it to the Budget Committee Chair, I asked her for all Budget Committee members' communications, and I didn't believe that that was being requested of the rest of the Budget Committee. So on January 2nd, I then went ahead and sent that 91A request form, the exact same one that I sent to the Chair and Town Administrator, to the Vice Chair and the Secretary of the Budget Committee. So the Secretary wrote me back, and he provided me with the same PDF I believe he sent to all of you today. But when he sent me that PDF, he also included the terms, the statement, this is which I am willing to share. So I asked him what exactly that means, but I have not heard back yet. So I don't know if there's any questions about that, the 91A request. I submitted it as a member of the Budget Committee to find out what the Budget Committee
So when the 91A request is submitted, you get an option of willing or not to share things that are asked for?
Well, I asked what that statement meant. I just want to make sure I'm not assuming, because if that is the case, then that's a major problem. I want
to go back to Mr. Henry's request. Do you find that you are effective on the board, on serving us on the Budget Committee? I know you know the budget inside and out. I think you're the best person on this board for that purpose, but...
I think I lack the ability to influence a majority of the Budget Committee. I was hoping that over 2 years that would have happened by now.
If that were a requirement, I wouldn't be on this board still. That was 4-1 for a couple of years. Sorry. I don't think it's wise to shift gears and to,
I don't.
we're in the middle of, like I said, the budget season, and we'll be reorganizing.
I think I've been effective in getting people to think about what is the purpose of the Budget Committee and what's the role, and whether or not actions are changing for the better. I think time is going to tell.
Okay.
Are there any other specific questions about the Budget Committee report? Because I kind of want to segue, or you have something else? I just want to segue into... What?
Are you going to add these into the minutes?
Oh, right. That's a great point. We had...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Sorry, that was the last thing. I can't believe I forgot to include that in my report. So the Budget Committee released all of their privileged and confidential letters that they had with the town attorney. And could I have your copy?
You may.
Clicker? Thank you. And I'll just paraphrase, and we can absolutely include these in the minutes. The actual letter dated December 12th from the town attorney that was given to a quorum of the Budget Committee in their non-meeting. And it says, Dear Budget Committee members, you have asked me to provide a legal opinion on the following. 1, review the process where the SAU places revenue from vending machines and tuition from FAMI into student activity accounts. 2, review the last 2 oil contracts during which commodities were purchased in one fiscal year for use in another fiscal year. And 3, provide an advisory opinion on any violations of RSA 32, and if any, what action the Budget Committee should take up to and including removal from office under RSA 32. She goes on to say, the short answer is that I do not recommend legal action under RSA 32 or otherwise based upon the information presented to date. Student activity accounts are not clearly defined in New Hampshire such that I would recommend legal action. As to the pre-buy of the oil, the way school districts structure it, they complied with RSA 32. And then the following pages, she addresses in more detail why she's giving that recommendation that the Budget Committee not pursue any legal action. So they released that for public consumption. And what did I say when I shared this with you? That this puts it all to rest. All of the 7 months worth of legal challenges that the Budget Committee was chasing after. It's all that.
And at the close of the Budget Committee meeting, they had said off camera that all of their questions had been answered. I did ask that when we reconvene on the 10th, that could be reiterated on camera, that they now have from the district everything that they felt they needed from us.
Good.
I did go through their questions, and here you go, here you go, here you go. So.
Thank you for that. I have to say it was really a good meeting to watch.
The 26th.
Yeah.
December 26th. Thanks. Thank you.
An update on some old business that the board, when we had voted, I forget which meeting it was. I think it was December 10th. No, I think it may have been 3rd. When folks had asked me to extend an invitation for a joint meeting with both the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. The response from Mr. Capello on behalf of the Board of the Selectmen was that they would be interested in a meeting with us. I think I've already shared this. Be interested in a meeting with us without the need for a facilitator and without the Budget Committee. I've since talked with Ms. Arquette, the chair of the Budget Committee, who is going to, basically the discussion was that the Budget Committee voted that they would be willing to do a joint meeting, but they didn't see the need for a facilitator.
Right, it was a split decision, but that was the majority. Yep.
Right.
What's the difference between a consensus and a vote? Sorry, never mind.
Motion or no motion?
Okay.
Motion in a second.
So Ms. Arcolette and I discussed that she was going to get back to me with some proposed dates. In the meantime, Mr. Capello had emailed me and said he's following up on the invitation. Do you have any dates in mind that I can bring to the meeting, which was earlier tonight? I didn't, because the parameters now are changing. And so this board extended a request to 2 other boards for a 3-board joint meeting. And now we've got these other thoughts of what direction we should go in. And so I'm not willing to discuss any dates to meet just with the Board of Selectmen, because that is not what the 4-to-1 majority of this board voted that they wanted to do. So I guess I have to ask you, do you want to meet and have a separate meeting with just the Board of Selectmen? Do you want to meet and have just a separate meeting with the Budget Committee? I don't know if this is safe to assume, but because we extended the invitation and they don't want a facilitator, I think, that I would run the meeting. Is that your understanding, or what?
I guess when I put the motion forward, the purpose of a facilitator for me was that none of us would run the meeting, that it would be an independent, nobody owns the meeting kind of thing. But I think if it's our invitation, we would run the meeting, and I don't know how they feel about that.
I also, got the impression from the Budget Committee that they were looking to do this after budget season, just from the general discussion, but that wasn't voted on per se. It was that you'd have the discussion with Sylvia.
Did the select board indicate why they didn't want to meet with the Budget Committee?
No, I believe the email just said something to the effect of they didn't think it was necessary to include them.
Interesting.
Because I think our agenda changes. The agenda changes.
Well, it does, and so I did go on to my email here just to just refresh my memory a little bit, but I did receive about an hour ago another email from Mr. Capello that said, "Good evening, the Board of Selectmen is asking what the agenda is for the Board of Selectmen and School Board meeting. When we have it, would the Public Safety Building work?"
Why wouldn't we just have it here?
Yeah, it would work, but
I don't have a
I'd have to
preference.
sit back and really think about what would an agenda need to be between school board and Board of Selectmen, because it's very different from what we, like you said, what the motion
Did the
was.
Budget Committee say they didn't want to meet with the select board, or she was okay with just the general
What I heard,
committee meeting?
what I heard them say was that they would like to meet quarterly with us and quarterly with the selectmen, but not with all of us in the same room.
They felt together it was too unwieldy.
That's what the discussion was, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people in a room to try to corral, basically.
Well, it only presupposes that there's no control over your own actions, but which I would hope for the adults, that's not true. But I don't see any purpose of meeting with, the problem comes from the fact that there's communications between all 3 that's not benefiting the town.
Right.
So I think we really need to sit all 3 together, and the fact that they don't want to do that is indicative of a different issue, I think, that is going on. And, for transparency's sake, we should all meet together. And I'm not interested in meeting separately.
Can I make a suggestion that we meet with each of them separately and then
See if
come
that can lead
together
to
to
a joint.
a joint meeting after the fact? Just a suggestion.
That's not a bad idea.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
So let's do it this way. Let's first meet with the Budget Committee, because I'll make the motion that we have a joint meeting with the Budget Committee.
A second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Can we throw out some dates? Because I think
Are we talking before March?
I didn't watch the meeting. You're saying that
The discussion, at the 26th, at the meeting on the 26th with the Budget Committee, was that between town and school, the number of meetings that they have out for budget hearings, for presentations and whatnot, are fairly large between now and at least the deliberative session, that they didn't feel like that shoehorning in another major meeting was a good idea.
Between now and deliberative?
Between now and deliberative. Okay. However, I think that's where the purpose of getting together was to make sure that some things were ironed out before there was necessarily an open gym without understanding.
Right. And deliberative is February 2nd, correct?
It is, yes. And we have the budget hearing on the 10th. The continuation date is the 14th. We need to decide whether
How about the 13th?
The 13th is a Sunday?
Oh, okay. So we have an extra, our snow date is on a Sunday?
No, the snow date's the 14th.
Oh, okay.
Monday the 14th.
And then whether your next meeting is going to be on the 14th, which would be the snow date. The next date is Martin Luther King Day, and then the date after that, there is no school. We could certainly still have a board meeting, but there's no school that day for a workshop.
What day is that?
That's the 28th. So we have the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. The 21st is Martin Luther King Day.
I just wanted to have a couple of dates to maybe talk to Sylvia about.
I just figured you might want to have your meeting date nailed down before
Yeah.
you do that.
I guess one of my thoughts is when that motion was made, the original intent that was discussed when we made that motion and had that discussion was to have a joint meeting prior to
The 26th.
the budget. Well, no.
The budget workshop.
The budget workshop.
Yeah, not the workshop, the presentation.
And the reason I voted no to it, well, there were a couple reasons I voted no. I thought a facilitator would be costly, and just as costly as probably illegal, having someone legally be there. And then it only gave us like a 9-day window to try to schedule that meeting.
Right.
Because when was the budget workshop?
The budget presentation was on the 12th.
And so that means this is the meeting was the 3rd. So that was my reason for voting no, is because I just thought that it was way too small of a window to try to get that accomplished by.
And obviously it didn't happen.
And, yeah. I did indicate in my conversation with Sylvia on the phone the other day that it would be nice to have it before deliberative. So do we want to just pick a couple dates that I can talk to? Did she send an email out at all this week about, last week about potential dates? I thought she was going to solicit some of you and just see what dates.
Sorry about that.
What do we, is the 28th one of them?
Say that again.
Is the 28th one of the dates that we wanted to propose? That's not our regular meeting, is it?
No.
It's not a regular, the regular
21st
meeting will be
is
the 21st, but it's Martin Luther King Day. So just checking to see if you wanted to meet then, that's fine.
Well, we could move our meeting on the 21st to the 22nd and still have the 28th open, if you want to do that.
Oh, she did. I apologize. I'm sorry. You asked me Sylvia wrote. I'm sorry.
If she would solicited some dates?
Yeah.
Were there any response, like reply alls?
Well, Mr. Capello wrote and said, do not hit reply all or it could be considered an illegal meeting. You should only reply to Sylvia. No. And he wrote that to the whole budget committee.
Polling the board otherwise.
Yeah. So, Ms. Arquette, what is the date on this? Why can't I see dates? anyway.
Did she propose any dates in the email?
No,
or
she
just
said, I
was
spoke with
asking?
Joel Shagnon this morning, and he would like me to send him some dates. He requested no Mondays because of school board meeting, and I requested no dates to conflict with the budget process.
No, I didn't say no Mondays. I just said no Mondays that we meet. I said we're usually pretty able to get ourselves together for other nights.
He said, and also some of my members work and it cannot conflict with that. So please send me dates for this meeting that will not conflict with your busy schedules. Thanks.
Okay.
But I can't see.
So why don't we propose a few dates?
It was two.
So let's go
It was
with
3 days ago, so.
the 28th was one? Yeah?
Yep.
Do we want to do
I'm just going to check the budget calendar.
the 14th, the 28th? Because
The
those are
14th is potentially the continuation date for
Or snow day.
Thursday night's meeting.
Oh.
Now, it may all happen in one night. Last year, it took 2 nights.
Okay.
Hopefully, any snow will be done by Thursday.
Okay. So do we want to throw out the 14th just in case we don't use it then? They've already got it slated.
Yeah,
That's true.
Oh, that's true. Then we could go with an alternative.
Right, so the 14th.
like that.
Impetus to get everything finished Thursday night.
Yeah. Well, and if we don't, it just doesn't happen on the 14th.
Right.
I can do any night that week.
Yeah. Are there any nights that week that you can't do?
I'm sure there are. I don't have my...
Oh. Let's start with the 14th and the 28th. Do we want to go into March? Well, the second is deliberative, so.
Let's start there.
All right.
I think we need to... What's the board interested in having on the agenda?
Protocol? I mean,
Yes.
just...
Communication protocol?
Communication protocol?
Why the budget committee doesn't have bylaws?
Is that ours to question?
Yep. I think so. Just a healthy discussion of why not.
I mean, they could question us on policies that we have that they don't agree with. Or, they can
Maybe
commend us on...
what's a more positive way to say that? What are the norms of the budget committee? How does one join the budget committee new and know what to do and what's going on?
I know at one point they discussed doing bylaws when Mike was on there, but I don't...
And how can the school board support those norms or guidelines or bylaws or boundaries?
Is that the purview of this board?
It's not for us to decide. This is supposed to be what do we want to discuss. I'm just brainstorming, I guess.
Well, I want to go back to, you made the motion on December 3rd.
For us to talk to you.
I thought it was, just to be blunt, I thought it was
Right.
like, how can we improve
And get a...
our relationship?
Right.
Yeah. I want to make sure that I set up whoever's going to succeed me as the budget committee rep for success. That's personally my interest, my ultimate goal when it comes to why have the full school board and the full budget committee get together and talk, is because I don't want anyone else to have the 24 months that I had.
Well, it means...
Of constant, you're not doing this. I know you're surprised by that? Like, it's just ridiculous.
How about this? The one item on the agenda is to make a timeline. This is what we do here. This is... And we'll collaborate what that timeline looks like for the school district.
And let those facts kind of just organically bring up where we might have some
And let
mismatch.
that drive the discussion.
I like that.
A communication timeline? Or this is what happens when?
Yeah.
Fiscal year
A
timeline.
fiscal year timeline. This is...
What's on a regular basis, what happens once a month, what happens once a quarter, what happens once a year,
Right.
and in what sequence.
When is this document due? You know, when do we contact the auditors? When do, you know, those kind of things. Just a timeline.
When Ms. Arquette proposed the invitation that was extended, was there any discussion on behalf of the budget committee of what they wanted to, like,
Oh, there
they
was a
voted to
lengthy
do it.
discussion.
Yeah.
It was too lengthy. Everybody was getting in the minutia. You know, if you're assuming that a facilitator would cost a lot of money, what if the facilitator's free? Oh, well, then that changes everything. It was a lot of what if scenarios.
Any discussion on the content of a meeting? No.
I don't think so.
Not a lot, no.
Again, I'm struggling without minutes, draft minutes.
It was long.
There was a motion and a second and a vote.
For what?
Not a consensus. You asked me what was the difference between consensus and a motion.
I thought they had to
In
be
this context. In this context.
She mentions consensus frequently as they're
Okay.
discussing, but
Okay.
there was a motion,
Okay.
second, and a vote on
Second
that
and
one.
a vote.
Okay, thank you.
And they did it by roll, actually.
Yeah.
I think if when we're able to meet, I think if they indicated that they would be interested in quarterly joint meetings, we could talk about some of this other stuff, I think, at a later meeting, if we end up going in that direction. I just think we need to talk about, okay, how do we move forward so that we don't seem so adversarial? We can disagree. We can disagree. You can stand up at deliberative session and vote and make a motion to cut the school budget by $1 million. And I'm not going to scream and holler. I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to tell you why I disagree with you. And then we vote.
Right.
And either it happens or it doesn't. You know, I mean, how do we get there? You know?
It's a really good question. But somebody had to make the first step. So I think we're making that first step in extending the olive branch and trying to get things figured out. And
Okay, so I'll call Sylvia in the morning and talk about these two dates and see what she's gotten for responses from individual members.
let's see if she wants to as the other chair.
Since she said no Mondays,
I know.
but that's okay.
I know, I meant the Mondays we don't meet.
Let's give a non-Monday, since that was,
Is there a
she's not going
non-Monday
to have any Mondays in
Yeah.
No, she said Joel said no Mondays.
I know, but I'm telling you, 3 days ago, she wrote an email saying, stay away from Mondays.
Right, but
Right.
she thought that I
Dates,
said,
but no
I meant no
So can we
Mondays.
throw in a non-Monday
Yeah.
date that might be,
Might
So the
considerably
Mondays
match
didn't work
one
for
that she
her
already
either?
has.
we don't know that, but
Oh.
if she's given a no Monday, if we can do a non-Monday option, you might actually land on something.
So like the 15th?
Wednesday, the 16th?
Sure.
15. Did you, 16?
I can't do 15. But maybe it's best if you guys go ahead and meet now.
Let me look at,
Well, you belong to both of those committees, so
You are the bridge. You are the transition.
The gum stuck under the chair. Wednesday, the 16th?
that's fine with me. This is the 16th work for you, Stan?
No better than the 14th, so that's fine.
and I have their budget calendar, so let me look quickly and see if what's already on their calendar.
Yeah, I already looked at it.
Okay, all right.
16th for you, Joel?
Trying to look. I think so.
I can do.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
How about Ms. Gazer over there? Oh, we're going to want minutes.
oh,
How's the 16th work for you?
Have we plunked you firmly in?
January 16th?
Yes.
It should be okay.
Okay, what about the 14th and the 28th? Are those dates okay with you?
January 14th?
Yeah.
It's just going to be one of these, not all of them.
Right, right.
And then the other date was...
The 28th.
28th, which is the fourth Monday.
That should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then snow dates for all? No, just
No.
kidding.
We move to the next day.
Okay.
All right, I'll give Sylvia a call in the morning.
Thank you.
Did I make a motion? I did make a motion, didn't I? A little while back.
Is there a,
Motion what, to propose those dates?
Should just meet with the budget committee.
yes.
Just the budget.
Oh,
And now you've had your discussion, so would you like to vote on it?
Dates. You can add those dates to them if you want.
so then, the board is, so I'll move forward with proposing dates to the budget committee chair. My response to Arthur is, we're going to pursue a joint meeting with the budget committee first.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to know why the select board doesn't want to meet with us, with all three, I guess. If
There was no reason given.
And what I understood from the discussion at the budget committee is that there are things that the budget committee feels like they want to discuss with us. There are things they want to discuss with the selectmen, but they don't feel like we need to necessarily be sitting in on what they're discussing with the select, not that we couldn't hear it, but that it's the issues they would have with the selectmen are not necessarily touching on the issues they have with us and vice versa. So rather than have it be, we're going to talk to you for a while and you sit over here, and we're going to talk to you and you sit over here, make it two separate meetings.
Yeah, what I gathered was that they want us to work on this first with the budget committee, that they didn't feel like they had any skin in this game.
I have a problem with that.
Right, well...
to begin with, but, I mean, the select board has a skin in every game in town. And if they don't realize that, then I don't know what to tell them, but, you know, I feel sorry for the town if the select board doesn't see that they have skin in every single piece of this town.
There may be a very legitimate reason why they wanted to meet with just us. It just wasn't communicated.
Right. It's just disappointing, that's all.
Okay. And that's all set. Any other old business?
You want to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was the second?
Dan.
It was Angie.
Okay.
Angie.
I mean, Tim's card.
Cold Star. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Any other old business? Okay. Our next regularly scheduled meeting, I guess we will do the 21st.
Okay.
And
That's okay? I mean,
You can or you can't?
I cannot be.
Okay.
There's no school that day.
I know.
So, and it would be...
No, actually, we do have school on Martin Luther King Day.
Okay.
We do.
I thought we did, but
do.
I thought you said we didn't. All right, so the principals and everybody will be here.
I'm 99% sure. No, we don't have school on the 28th because it's a workshop
Oh, that's
day.
the workshop day. Okay, my mistake.
We,
It's a workshop?
when did that ever happen? It's Civil Rights Day, first of all.
Civil
right?
Rights Day, yes.
Sorry,
In our
Yes,
state.
yes, in our
And
Right, because
My calendar,
I don't think so. I think we were one of the last schools that finally gave in and gave that
I'm
day.
pulling it up. Hang on.
my calendar
Who can
says
get to
Martin
it
Luther
first?
King Jr. Day.
Is what?
Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
I know, but in New Hampshire, isn't it
It is
officially?
civil.
it's Civil Rights Day.
Because I have it in my calendar, my family calendar is off.
I have a health and wellness meeting on the
Both days are off.
28th.
Both Mondays. The
Both Mondays
21st,
are off.
21st is
At 3
a
o'clock.
complete day
Yeah.
off.
Right, because the workshop is over.
And the
prior to that.
28th is a workshop.
Oh, I take it back. We do have the 21st off. Okay, we have the 21st off. Doesn't mean we can't meet, but
Yeah, but it would be the meeting that we have the principal reports at that next meeting. And
Correct.
since we didn't, I thought we were going to try and split them up so that we were doing some like tonight and
yes. And as I have all of them in on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the board's fancy? Do you want to?
22nd?
Do we need to have a second meeting in January?
Why don't we consider
Prior to
all
the
of the budget
deliberative
work that we
session?
the meeting with the budget committee as being our second meeting?
Could we meet earlier that day?
That's business, but
Well, we could schedule the 28th if we had business that we had to
That's true.
necessarily.
I will likely have a manifest that we'd need signed.
Oh, right.
Excuse me.
And if I put that off too far, it
Right.
starts to throw people into a tizzy.
I move to hold our second meeting of January on the 28th. 6:30 p.m. here, with or without the budget committees accepting the invitation.
Yeah, I don't. Does she need to move it though? Do we?
No, let's wait and see what dates they pick because
Let's,
I hate
well, let's
to pick.
agree that we're going to meet on the 28th
Okay.
because we're going to.
If the
Yeah.
budget committee, you could always do a short meeting thereafter.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have short meetings.
Sometimes.
Well, we'll be meeting the following Monday though. That'll be the first February
Right.
meeting. So
Oh, all right. Yes,
you know,
that's true.
whatever.
Okay.
If we, we have some
All right.
dire things that need to be done, then we can.
And we can always come in and sign manifests too. So yes, 28th is fine.
So, folks, it's the 28th. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Yes.
the budget hearing is what time and where?
Yes. Sorry, the time.
The budget hearing is at 6:30 at the municipal offices in the Selectmen's Chambers downtown. It's 6:30. Typically, the budget committee meetings are at 7. It is posted for 6:30. I believe our posting said 6 in the event that you wanted to meet beforehand if you needed to, but we can back that up to 6:30. That can still be amended.
On the 10th,
On the 10th, Thursday.
this Thursday.
This Thursday.
Selectmen's Chambers.
Selectmen's
For the
Chambers.
folks at home,
Yeah.
so they can support us.
So you want to change our posting to 6:30?
I can if you would like me to do so.
I don't see. Do you see any purpose for us meeting at 6?
Before, not unless you're...
I will change it to 6:30. We have time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session 2 under RSA 91A:3, 2A, B, and C for personnel.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moore and second by Mr. Frieda. All those in favor by roll. Aye. Good night, folks.
Thank you.